lesson, I thought I would introduce you to chords. What are chords? Basically, they're a group of notes in the scale that, when played together, harmonize or sound pleasing to the ear. Now, why some notes harmonize and others don't has to do with the relationships between the frequencies of the notes. I don't want to get too, I won't get too into the weeds about it. But basically, if the frequencies of the notes being played together are composed of small whole numbers, like 3 to 2, 4 to 3, 5 to 4, the notes will harmonize. They'll sound good together. If the numbers get big, like 45 to 32, the notes will sound more discordant or dissonant, as we call it. So let's take two notes, for example. We have A here at 220 hertz, and we have E here at 330 hertz. So that's a 2 to 3 or 3 to 2 relationship. When you play them together, they harmonize. They sound good together. And this in particular is called the perfect fifth harmonization. And that's the foundation for a lot of power chords that you hear in rock. So you hear. So that's essentially what it means when two notes harmonize or sound good together, is when the ratios of the frequencies of the two notes can be reduced to small integers. Like I said, 3 to 2, 4 to 3. The smaller those integers, the better they harmonize. So now that we understand what harmony basically is, it turns out that this harmony exists between every other note in the scale, especially when we're looking at the first three. So let's take the C major scale that I showed you in the previous lessons. I play the note C as the first note, right here. Skip the second note D, which would be this, and play the third note E. And then skip the F and play the G. So if I play these three notes, the first, third, and the fifth, we basically have a chord. This is called a 1-3-5 triad. Now let's move one note up and start with the D. Okay? And we'll skip the E and play the F. And then skip the G and play the A. So it's still starting with the D, we're going 1, the third, and the fifth. Another 1-3-5 triad. And now we have D minor. So we've played the C major, which is composed of the C, E, and G. And then we're playing D, F, and A, which is D minor. Now, if we envision carrying that 1-3-5 pattern through all of the 7 notes in the C major scale, we've walked through all 7 of the basic chords in the C major scale. Okay, so let me quickly walk you through those triads, all 7 of them. We start with the C here on the E string, 8th fret. Skip the D and play the E. Skip the F and play the G. All right. And then we go to D and skip the E and play the F. And then skip the G and play the A. So from C. All right. And then we go to the E minor. And then F major. G major. A minor. And then B diminished. And then back to the C major. Okay? So that's all 7 of the chords played as a triad in the C major scale. 7 of the basic chords. Now, we don't typically play the chords this way, of course, and we don't necessarily play just triads, play the 3 notes. When we play a chord, we usually play we play the three notes, we play the triad, except we also add the octaves of those triad notes. So for example, one popular way of playing a major chord, for example, C major, is to bar it. So what we do is we play, for C major, we play the root note on the 5th string, and here's the C note on the 5th string, or on the A string. And then you bar the three strings that are below it with your ring finger on the D, G, and E string. So 3rd fret on the A string, and then the D, G, and B string, that's these 3 strings, you just bar across on the 5th fret. And that's how you can play the C major chord, or in general, any major chord. So if you wanted to play D major, you just put your index finger on the D note on the A string, this string here, and then just bar across. So that's one way of playing a major chord, by barring in this style here. Now another way of playing a bar chord is to finger it like this. And you can see the fingering on the chart here. But basically, you bar with your index finger all the way across, all the way starting from the top, all the way down. And then you place your other fingers, your ring finger, here, and your pinky just down below it, and then your middle finger here. So just look at the chart and it shows exactly where I fingered those. And that's another way of playing a major chord. Now, you can take that, you can always transpose that major chord. This in particular is a C major. If you want to play a D major, just move up a whole step. Or if you want to play a G major, move down here, where your root note is a G. So that's another way of playing a bar chord, a major bar chord. All right, so in that same fashion, let me show you how to play a minor chord. Now let's say you want to play a C minor. It's very much like the way you fingered the C major, except you'll lower the 3rd note. So instead of playing this note, you play this note. Otherwise, all the other notes are the same. So basically you're playing like this. All right. Now the other way of playing a C minor, in that same position where I showed you the major, remember I had you have the middle finger playing here. You would actually just lift that middle finger up. So the only fingers you have involved, you have your index finger barring all the way across, and then your ring finger and pinky in the position I'm showing here on the chart, and you can see here, and everything else is just being barred by the index finger. So it's very similar to the way you play the major chord, but you're just lifting off that middle finger to play the minor chord. So any minor chord can be played this way. And you can just see where the root note is. In this case, you're on the C. So this is a C minor. If you bring that index finger down to the A and play that same fingering position, then you're playing A minor. Same here with the G, G minor. Okay? So basically I've shown you 2 ways of playing chords using this barring style. And those 2 hand positions will just be very versatile. Now, another thing you'll notice in rock, we play a lot of chords called power chords. And power chords are essentially built from those bar chords, except all you're doing is just playing the 1 and the 5. So instead of playing A minor or A major, you just play the 1 and the 5. And that's called a power chord, and usually you're overdriving it to give it that heavy rock sound. Okay? Now, one thing I wanted to point out is that I didn't emphasize open chords. I know in a lot of lessons, when you're first introduced to playing guitar, you're taught how to play the C chord as an open chord down here, or the G chord, G7, or the D chord, or D minor. And the reason I don't bother to show you the open chords is because with open chords, you're somewhat limited on where you play them. If you play a C major here as an open chord, you can't easily transpose that finger positioning to play a D major. You can't just move up a half, or you can't just move up a whole step to play the D major because you still have these open notes. So there are plenty of tutorials out there that show you how to play the open chords, but I wanted to focus on the bar chords and get you started early on that because it gives you a lot of flexibility in the future for being able to play these chords in different positions and be able to transpose your songs easily. So I hope you found this lesson helpful in being introduced to what chords are and what it means to have notes harmonize. And again, this is just an introduction to chords. What I showed you was just the basic major and minor chord and 2 ways of playing those. But obviously there are a lot more chords there. There's 7th chords, major 7ths, there's 9ths, there's augmented chords, there's diminished chords, there's all these different ways, and they're all variations of those basic chords that are still built from the Western scale. Okay, thanks for watching.